All right. From walking down our sidewalk from the front of the house, here's the beginning. Here's around our apple trees out front of our fence. We had some volunteer tomatoes and butternut squash come up in the compost ring that we put on the outer edge, which I know it just looks like a jumbled up mess, but that's kind of exciting. It's like bonus. So there's already a butternut squash. At the beginning of this, we have these spaced, I believe, 5 feet apart. So we have a plant, and then 5 feet over we have another plant, but it just still, I'm not sure if this was enough spacing because they are just growing massively. Let me step back and let you see how they're just growing. And this is like a 65-foot long spaced area. It's 65 foot long, and I'm not quite sure exactly how wide. This is what we're dealing with right now, these little suckers right here. I just went and picked a bunch of eggs off and killed squash bugs yesterday. Anyway, but what we have here in the beginning is I'm growing 3 varieties of spaghetti squash this year, because just the one type, I think it's just named spaghetti squash, and I get all my seeds from rareseeds.com, which is Baker Creek. The one that I grew last year, they were just decimated, and I didn't get to save back any spaghetti squash because the squash bugs decimated them. They killed the plants, and after they killed the plants, they went to the spaghetti squash, and they were not ready to pick yet. So then they bored into the squash itself. And the ones I tried to save, they never turned a bright yellow. They just kind of stay a little green, and when you went to cut them open, they were absolutely no good. I had grown some Waltham butternut squash. Those were the only squashes that I got to save last year. Those are the only ones that made it. So just in case, I did Waltham butternut squash and another type of butternut squash. I'll have to make a video showing the different types. But like I said, I have 3 varieties of spaghetti squash. One's a Polish, one's a Japanese, and then one's just the regular spaghetti squash. I'm not quite sure exactly what this is. I don't know if this has to be one of the spaghetti squashes, and I'm wanting to lean towards the Japanese. And it seems to be a bush, not a vining. So I'm liking the way it looks. It's not going to take as much garden space, obviously. But I'm wondering how much fruit it will produce for long-term storage versus the vining. So we'll see how that goes. Over here, on the other side, this clump of weeds and vining morning glories from the previous year that reseeded. This is my strawberry patch. Now it looked really good. I have actually weeded it twice, but after the strawberries were done for the season, I let it go. So I'm not quite sure. A lot of these strawberry plants are 2 to 3 years old, so I don't know if we're just gonna dig these up and be done. I don't know what we're gonna do. We'll just have to wait till the end of the season and see if they even survive being overgrown by the morning glories. The morning glories might be helping them to protect them from the heat. I don't know. This is just gonna be a disaster. I'm not ready to deal with it. Here's the rest of our butternut squash. This one is not the Waltham. This is the other variety, which I cannot remember the name. And it has a very long neck. It's supposed to preserve better and maybe be more resistant. Don't quote me on that. But I just wanted to I'd rather give a try to different varieties than be stuck with one. Like last year, I just had one type of butternut squash, one type of spaghetti squash, and I wound up with no spaghetti squash. So it's good to err on the side of caution and just try some new things. That way, you're not left without. And we were really sad to be left without spaghetti squash last year. So here's the rest of the butternut squash. And then down here we have watermelon. These are not from Baker Creek. My family did not like the ones from Baker Creek last year. The taste was excellent. I can't remember I think it was a strawberry watermelon. They didn't like the seeds. So I got a, quote, seedless variety type Might be a Burpee brand. Just picked them up from Walmart. It's supposed to be 78 days till picking, and we already have small little blooms and tiny little melons on here, so hopefully they'll do well. Over here is also our 2 types of blueberry bushes, and at the end those small little stumps are our elderberry bushes that we got in late. I'm going to pan back over here to the arches, and I watch Roots and Refuge Homestead on YouTube, and she grows purple noodle beans each year. Anyway, she grows Chinese purple noodle beans, I believe that's the name. I am not technical. And they will vine. It's a beautiful vining plant. So I'm hoping it'll provide some nice pretty shade for these arches, so that way I can walk through and just have this. I just wanted a beautiful look to my garden this year, as well as having a purpose. So they'll feed our family as well as giving off beauty. And then I also have my cucumber plants kind of in the middle of each plant, or of each arch. And you can see I'm getting some blooms. Let's see if I can move this leaf. Yep, I've got some blooms and some cucumbers. So they're doing pretty good. A lot of my family is asking, when are you going to have cucumbers? I was late getting them out. I'm just going to be thankful to have any at all. So they're looking good. So we'll pan another shot from the other way. This is looking up towards the house. And again, for those who, I don't have very many subscribers, but those who are watching, we are in a small town of less than 10,000. We are in the city limits on an acre lot, and we do what we can with what we've got. We are also in a floodplain, so our garden does flood, and it did flood about 2 weeks. Oh, it was 4th of July weekend. It was 4th of July night that our garden flooded. So my squash, it was up to this top. It was actually, the water was up to this top wire on this tomato cage. Now this is one of the updates I wanted to give you. The video that we put out, we had cut off the bottom legs of these tomato cages and stuck them in the ground. We did not train these squashes up through here. These squashes, we put it directly over the center of them, and they did their thing. They did exactly what they were supposed to do. Now yesterday I came out here and I trimmed all the bottom leaves, limbs, if you want to call them limbs, but I trimmed all the bottom limbs up, so that way now I was not hardly getting any squashes, but now you can see my pollinators can see the blooms, whereas before it just looked like this huge bush. So I wasn't getting good pollination off of 90% of these plants. They weren't producing. And also with the flood, you can see all the stuff on the ground. That is mulch, leaves, dirt, debris from our flooding, and it just riddled. This is not bug damage. This is from the flood. So you can still see that stuff on those leaves was left behind by our flooding. So I had to cut out a lot of our flood damaged leaves because they were just rotting and creating more disease, in my opinion. They weren't being helpful. So I cut them back. I prune my zucchinis and squashes. And I'm proud to say that I do, because it works. I don't kill off my plant. Oh, there's a nice zucchini right there. That is lovely. I missed that. But that's the only zucchini I have so far, because they're just not getting pollinated. It just was a bush. I wish I'd taken a before shot. And see, some of them, they didn't grow in the cage, and there they are laying on the ground. Whereas the ones that did train themselves up, they look great. This is, I'm so excited for this. This is like a big, huge win for us. I will always do this. So these are no longer tomato cages. I'm going to call them squash cages. So I'm going to turn. Right behind me is my tomato cage anew. These are cattle panels, and I also alternated fencing. We cut fencing just because, to cut our cost. But these are all my rows of tomatoes. Here's my Black Beauty tomato. And then I also have either the orange or yellow pepper down at the base. On this side, I have Hungarian heart paste tomato. And down below it, it's either the orange or the yellow, and at the very end, the red pepper. Then here's the row in between. This is just in between to give it some room, some breathing room. On this arch is German Johnson slicers, and you all look, this will always be my favorite slicer tomato because of the size. These things have got to be a pound at least. Move that leaf. And I have got many. There's many of them. I have big hands, and these things are gonna fit in the palm of my hand. Now this one might have been a fasciated blossom, which means a double, triple blossom. But most of these tomatoes, all the way down this row, and I'm thinking these rows are 20 foot long. There is 10 plants per row. Yeah, so about 22 foot. Most of these tomatoes on these German Johnsons for Baker Creek, they are amazingly huge. I'm so pleased with them. Now down below the German Johnsons, I have my banana pepper. We've never grown these before. And my husband is loving these. So I plan on either fermenting or pickling them, whichever becomes the easiest for my time. But they are looking fantastic. So there's another big tomato, and I'm telling you, I don't think the camera is going to do it justice. These things are big. But we'll keep walking through here. On the other side, this is these I probably will not grow again. This is my last year. These are called the Henderson's Pink Ponderosa. Now, some of these are big, which they have been in the years past. You can see again against my hand. It's not bad. This might have been a fasciated blossom. I'm not for sure. But for the most part, for some reason, I mean, look at how small they are. Now, it's kind of neat how they have, let me go around to the other side, because this is the back side. I'm trying to go slow so we don't have camera wiggle. Y'all, I just film from my phone because I don't have a fancy camera. But, I mean, it's kind of neat how they've grown in these little clusters. That would be cute for maybe a market garden, and I could sell them in a cluster. But, yeah, see, these big ones, these are the fasciated ones. You can tell by the bottom how they look. That one looks like it's sleeping and going, oh. Anyway, but I want big tomatoes so I can can, so I can slice. So these Henderson's Pinks, they're not going to make it next year. I'm not going to plant another row of them. But this is pretty. I do like these I do like these clusters here. Those are kind of cool. They're cool looking, but they're just not big enough. So if you like tomatoes in clusters like this, which last year, I swear, the past 2 years, I have grown these 2 years. This is my 3rd season. I've never seen them do this, at least not that I remember. So anyway, now a new one for us this year, let me pan over to this side, is the Amish paste from Baker Creek. I decided last year, our family eats a ton of sauce, spaghetti sauce, just sauce in general. And so I wanted to grow a pasting tomato, a true paste. I grow the Hungarian hearts, which get huge, but I wanted to grow a true paste. So I'm doing the Amish paste, and I'm really liking them. They have loaded up on the vines. I have got a ton. Each plant is just producing a ton. Here's another plant. Just one plant. Each plant has probably got at least, no joke, 20 tomatoes. Now this is what's also amazing. Look at the size of this one. Here's the palm of my hand. This tomato is huge, and this is a paste. They could all, that's why I grow the Hungarian hearts. They're usually that big. Here's another paste. It's humongous compared to, this is probably their normal typical size. This plant, I don't know. I must have put a lot of rabbit manure or something. I also put raw egg and Epsom salt in each hole. So I don't know, maybe I put an awesome egg in that hole. There's some more. These are going to be big. Anyway, those are the Amish paste. Come down to the end of the row. And then over here is just my cherry tomatoes. I'm not a fan of cherry tomatoes, but they have these blueberry cherry tomatoes. This is kind of like the small version of that Black Beauty tomato. So I want to try them because they're supposed to be sweet and full of the anthocyanin. And then, oh no, my pepper plant fell over. These are pepperoncini pepper plants. I'll try to tuck this up in here. Maybe it will stay. Anyway, here is my great mistake. I thought I had planted black vernissage cherry tomatoes. These are not black vernissage. I believe they're green. Baker Creek sends me these seeds every year. And I have not been a fan of the black vernissage, but I thought, well, something's better than nothing. But they must have sent me green this year, and I didn't. Pays to look. Pays to look and read. Don't assume. Anyway, so they look beautiful. They look beautiful. I don't know. It's kind of like whenever Burger King came out with the green ketchup. I was not a fan. I just could not eat it. I don't know if I'm going to be able to eat these green tomatoes. They're starting to soften. I don't know. I don't even know when they're ripe. I guess whenever they're soft. I don't know. Anyway, that was my mistake. I should have read, and I probably would not have planted those. I would have planted some extra Amish ones, I guess. All right. Now coming over here, try to get you orientated so you kind of see where we're at. So we had the squashes and the tomatoes behind. Please excuse my kids screaming in the background. Anyway, here is our green beans. This was our third planting. This was our third planting. The first two plantings, I have always soaked my beans overnight and then planted them the next day. But here in Missouri, we were having rain like all the time, almost every day. And the beans rotted out. They did not grow, they just rotted. So on the third planting, I'm like, I'm planting 2, maybe 3, every 3 to 4 inches. And this one middle row came up like crazy. Like every single bean I planted, they were non-soaked. So I actually then transplanted them over here and at the end, all the doubles. So that is the only way I had beans this year. And I might try to go, I used every bit of seed I had left. I have probably spent $10 in seed. And green bean seed is cheap. But anyway, so that's the story on my green beans. I will just be thankful to have a harvest this year. I just want to put up green beans. I can our food, and I want to put up green beans. Now over here, we cut down all of our sunflower seeds. That was kind of a funny story and an accident. They weren't supposed to get cut down yet, but my daughter was trying to help me. After our flood, a lot of them were laid over, and I said, I just want to cut down the laid over ones. And she cut them all down. Anyway, it looks good. It looks nice. So we no longer have a sunflower patch, and they're all laying here, and then I'll collect the seed heads and save them for next year. Now over in this row is our okra. They are starting to look really good. Now yes, these were totally covered in water by our flood waters, but they have come back. They did really well, didn't lose a single plant. Here is our Odessa squash. This is supposed to be extremely rare. I believe it's from Russia, from Baker Creek. They don't sell this. I think I got it for free. I either ordered it or I got it for free one year as a free seed. Right behind us, there's our creek where you see all that tall grass. It's just our, you know, not tough looking creek, but boy, it really can pack a punch when it wants to. And we hadn't flooded in 2 years, but this year it did a doozy. This is our lonely blueberry bush that I think this is our 3rd year with this one. It needs to go over with the others. But time, folks. If you don't have the time, it just doesn't happen. So at least it's still alive and still producing. You want to see a sad greenhouse? Look at the mess. This is just pretty much a storage shed. I cleaned it all out, had it all organized, and then as the year, the summer rolls on, this is what it looks like. Oh my gosh. Oh well. I know where everything is. My kids may not, but I do. All right, we had Swiss chard planted here. We just pulled it up and put down all this weed mat because we were tired of the grass. That's where my spinach and lettuces were, and a little bit of Swiss chards left. And you can just see the grass is overtaking because the ground wants to grow the grass. I have another arch here. This is one of our original arches. This small area here. Let me take a step back. This video is gonna be so long. This was our original garden space. It was about 15 by 12, and we grew 12 tomato plants, lettuce, squashes, peppers, and stuff in here. But then we expanded and we expanded and expanded. And that's why I have the fence now, so that way I won't expand anymore. I promised my husband I wouldn't make the garden any bigger. But anyway, we put all this weed mat down. This garden stays primarily shaded due to the trees above us. So we're gonna plant, we had our carrots planted in here, and now we're gonna plant some lettuce for our, late summer and fall garden. Hopefully it won't be bitter and bolt. I also planted more cucumber over here. That way it's more in the shade. I've got some more of those noodle beans over here. And I've not shown this on video before. Might be kind of embarrassed because we don't have the conditions exactly how we want them. But over here in the shade, we also have our meat rabbits. There's our females. And I'm not gonna go around the whole thing, but here's where we've got our chickens hidden. Our kids do meat birds for 4-H, and our 4-H auction is coming up in 2 to 3 days. And so here's their male meat birds, male meat Cornish crosses. And then they just separated these out last night, and here's their females. Those are the ones they are not going to sell because they're just not as large. But they are going to sell their male meat birds. And then we'll get to, oh, the fence isn't going to let me zoom in. Then we'll get to butcher them and have that meat for our freezer. So anyway, that's just an update on what our garden's doing, what's growing. And to me, I say that this year so far has been a success, a huge win. Even though we've gotten floodwaters, it's been a win, not a fail. The only fail was the green beans, but it's a win now because they are growing. So there's not a lot of beauty to my garden yet. It's a lot of green, but we are happy with it. This is where my sunflowers were. Can't even tell. I'm so sad over that. But I was so proud of her for working so hard. She came in so happy with what she had done. So I'm proud of her hard work ethic. But here's tomatoes, the squashes. I love the squashes. I love the tomato cages, y'all. My squash cages. Try this out. See if you like it. I do not like my squashes laying on the ground. And if you don't have the weed mat, I would think this would help tremendously. You can see the squash bugs. Spray at the base of your plant, get those things. And then watermelon, butternut, cucumber, noodle beans, and then more spaghetti squashes. I'm in love with this, you guys. Just can't wait. I can't wait till I get to pick. I've only picked 2 tomatoes this season. I'm waiting for the rest of them to blush and allow me to pick them. But it can be done. Just get out there and plant something. We'll talk to y'all next time. Thanks for coming and watching Chicken Creek Homestead. Like, subscribe, share it with your friends. We are just a simple family that lives in a small town inside the city limits. We do what we do with what we've got. We have 6 kids and a number 7 on the way. So it can be done, guys. So just get out there and plant. Just do it. Have a great day.